Pour un sujet qui est brûlant en ce moment, c'est VAPE, réglementation et politique de santé. Donc l'objectif, c'est qu'on a un parterre d'invités de choix pour discuter de tout ce qui est législation, de faire un point ensemble dans le monde entier. Next slide, s'il vous plaît. Pour faire un point dans le monde entier sur les réglementations aujourd'hui, où est-ce qu'on en est, quelles sont les conséquences pour les vapoteurs et quelles sont les nouvelles réglementations qu'on va avoir. Et pour ça, je vais vous présenter évidemment Jacques Houezec, le fondateur de SOVAPE et qui est notre ambassadeur en France pour tout ce qui est les données, les data et auprès des politiques de santé. Dimitris, qui est le fondateur de Smoke Free Radio, c'est une radio que je vous encourage à aller voir, qui est extrêmement actif dans tout ce qui est action internationale au niveau des États-Unis pour combattre l'ensemble de la dimming regulation. Maintenant, on a évidemment Phil Bussardo, qui est l'autre reviewer américain par excellence et qui va aussi nous donner son insight dès l'introduction sur qu'est-ce qui est en train de se passer selon lui. On a évidemment Clive Bates, que vous avez vu notamment dans le film hier, que vous voyez dans tous les films, qui est incontournable dans tout ce qui est l'analyse et les politiques de santé. Il a cet excellent blog qui s'appelle Counterfactual, donc n'hésitez pas à aller le voir sur Internet. Et je termine par Lauriane, juste à côté de moi, et qui va nous faire justement un point sur tout ce qui est Angleterre et en même temps sur son avis sur l'ensemble des politiques mondiales actuellement en cours. Alors, l'ensemble de cette conférence va se tenir en anglais. Donc, vous avez des audio guides si vous avez besoin de suivre. Voilà, sinon je vous souhaite une bonne conférence. N'hésitez pas si vous avez des questions, bien évidemment. So now we switch to English. So hello guys, actually I introduce you, all of you. Thanks for joining us here. So today's purpose is to talk about vapes, vaping regulations, the regulation we are having now and the regulation to come and the impact, the good thing and the bad thing for vapers. So I think for an introduction, we could start with you, Phil.
I get to go first.
Yes. Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So the first thing, thank you very much to Vapexpo for having me back. I was here for the first one a couple of years ago, and I was blown away by the fact that anybody even knew me in France. But I guess vaping isn't about a city, isn't about a country. Vaping is about the world, because in the world, everybody smokes, okay? So I wanted to talk first because these fine folks up here are going to be able to give you much better insight into the regulations and the FDA and the PMTA and all of this stuff. I just want to get mad for a little while, if that's okay with you guys. That's what I want to do. I want to get mad. And I'm going to stand up while I get mad, too, if that's all right. So the FDA, in their infinite wisdom to protect the people and to save lives, they have these deeming regulations. So in their attempt to make people healthier and to make people safer, they are going to kill people. People are going to die. And why is that? Because if we can't get these FDA regulations fixed, if we can't get the predicate date changed, the products aren't going to be available. The vape shops are going to go out of business. Okay? And smokers aren't going to have access to these potentially life-saving products. People are going to die. That's way one. Okay? What about way two? There is a percentage, not a lot, I don't think a lot, but there's a percentage of people who vape currently who, again, aren't going to have access to those products, and they are going to go back to smoking. People are going to die. What about way three? Okay? Way three is that there is going to be a black market created. Okay? That is going to happen, don't kid yourselves. And that is going to put unsafe products and unsafe e-liquids into the hands of the consumer. People are going to die. The first one that gets mixed the wrong way or over-nicked or maybe access to that nicotine to children, people are going to die. And I think there's another way, too, because there's a lot of people who have a lot of money, time, and effort invested in the vaping industry, okay? Be it as a business or a manufacturer or a vape shop owner, they're going to lose everything. Their entire investment. They are going to lose their income. they are going to lose their way of making money, and I wouldn't be surprised if that doesn't lead to a suicide here or there. People are going to die. So thank you very much, FDA, for protecting our health and our well-being, right? But you know what? It's so sad because it's not about health. And it's not about people being healthier. It's about money and power. Isn't that what it always is? It's about money and power. That's what they care about. They care about money. See, when I look at things like the Royal College of Physicians study, and I see that they are calling vaping 95% safer than smoking, my mind, my tiny little mind says that, well, that means that there's 95% less of a chance of you getting cancer if you vape rather than smoking, right? This little grassroots industry could potentially save 95% of smokers' lives. We shouldn't be paying them. They should be paying us, right? I mean, look at what this industry has done. But I can't just attack the FDA, because if we're talking about money and power, we also have to talk about the vaping industry a little bit. Maybe not so much here, although I do see Vape Naked right over there. There's a lot of money grabbing going on in vaping right now, okay? So we look at the FDA, we say they're about money and power and not about health and safety. But I can also look at this very industry and say that there's a lot in this industry happening right now that's about a money grab, and it doesn't care about the industry. It doesn't care about how this industry looks. It doesn't care about how this industry is perceived to the public. We've got a lot of issues out there, okay? And I want to see these issues resolved. I want to win this. I want to win this for all of us right here who vape. I want to win this for all of the manufacturers and all of the vape shops who are making money with this. But most of all, I want to win this to reach, at least in the States, the 40 million people who are still smoking. So that's what I have to say, and I'll leave it to somebody else.
Juste, alors je vous rappelle que ceux qui veulent, il y a des audio guides que le test là-bas peut vous donner. Sinon, vous la faisons court, just to sum up for them in a few words, and I remind them there is audio guide if they need to, and they can also watch it back on YouTube afterwards. Les trois grands points, c'est quoi? C'est que à l'heure actuelle, avec la régulation, ce qui vous explique au niveau des États-Unis, à l'heure actuelle, 99,99 des shops vont fermer à terme aux États-Unis. Donc déjà, l'industrie va se casser la gueule. L'autre chose, c'est qu'au niveau des vapoteurs, évidemment, plus d'industrie veut dire plus de matériel à disposition. Et donc, évidemment, les vapoteurs risquent de retomber dans le tabac. La troisième chose qui rappelle, c'est au niveau du marché noir, qu'il va y avoir un boom du marché noir, black market, aux États-Unis et dans le monde entier, parce que les vapoteurs ne vont pas vouloir se soumettre et vont vouloir avoir envie d'avoir encore accès à leur matériel. Et comme il dit, nous, ce qui est important, c'est qu'on sauve des vies, ok, mais il dit aussi, on a une industrie. Notre industrie de la vape, évidemment, elle a besoin de faire de l'argent, elle a besoin de se développer, elle a besoin d'être mieux perçue. Les vapoteurs aussi ont besoin d'être mieux perçus dans le public. Donc aujourd'hui, c'est vraiment un moment crucial dans la vie de la vape au niveau des réglementations. Parce que nous, en France, c'est vrai qu'on a la TPD, on n'a pas eu l'application la plus stricte, mais aux États-Unis, ils ont une situation extrêmement grave. Je vous rappelle aussi qu'au Québec, et au Canada, pardon, avec la loi 44, je vous rappelle que la situation est catastrophique aussi. Donc Phil vous rappelle qu'en l'occurrence, tout se joue en ce moment et qu'il est important que vous soyez informés et il est important que vous soyez mobilisés parce que justement, on est en train de défendre nos droits parce que quand l'industrie de la vape est touchée, bien évidemment, les vapoteurs sont touchés aussi par voie de fait. So, okay, so actually, that's not a good picture. I know why you wanted to make a shout out, you know, and say, okay, guys, wake up. The industry is falling, the vapors may die, will die, and go back to smoking. And the last thing is the black market. And you say, okay, the vaping industry also have to move forward and change perception. So, okay, but where do we go from there? So what is the situation today? So Dimitris and Clive, Lorian and Jacques, I mean, where are we heading? Where are we now at for the situation? Dimitris, Clive, which one?
As we saw yesterday, and for those of you that saw the Billion Lives, this is not just a USA situation. This is a global attack on tobacco harm reduction. Where do we go from here? I think what we need to do as an industry is become more organized. We're very disorganized from a consumer level to a manufacturing level to even an advocacy level.
Le problème, comme explique Dimitri, c'est qu'aujourd'hui, il y a un problème au niveau de l'industrie de la vape. Il ne parle pas qu'aux États-Unis, il parle aussi en Europe. C'est que l'industrie de la vape est très désorganisée. Et aujourd'hui, il est urgemment temps que l'industrie de la vape s'organise.
This industry grew in just a few years. We're still a baby industry. We're still a small industry, but look at this event here from 3 years ago, how it's grown. We've invested a lot of money into marketing and invested a lot of money into all these beautiful stands and liquids and models instead of investing money where we need to invest money, and that is public health, testing, science, political action, consumer action, industry action, and I think that's the only way we're going to be able to win against the big interests that we're up against right now.
Juste en quelques mots, ce qui vous explique, c'est qu'aujourd'hui, on a la chance d'être dans par exemple, un Vapexpo, comme il disait, il y a 3 ans, enfin, il y a 2 ans et demi, 3 ans, c'était pas du tout aussi grand, ça se développe. Il y a des booths, il y a des stands qui sont toujours plus beaux les uns que les autres, il y a du marketing, tout se développe, mais ils disent, surtout, n'oubliez pas, avant tout, ce qui est important, c'est des actions faites par les industriels pour faire changer les choses au niveau légal.
Good morning, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here. Amazingly cool exhibition. Thank you for this. I've learned a lot already this morning. For me, this is the battle in public health. It is going to be a defining issue, really, for the century in terms of the arguments about 1 billion lives. I would say we have to turn people. We have to bring them to understand, and it's one person at a time. I noticed a picture of Professor Doutsenberg up on the screen up there. Now that is a man who has made a really important journey, I think it's fair to say. I'm sure he's not here, but he has changed his mind. He's had the courage to change his mind, stand up for doing the right thing. And we just need to keep pursuing that. He's influential. His influence has changed things. It's created a new space in France for SOVAPE and things like that. So that's my view, one thing at a time. In terms of the problem we're facing, it's actually much worse, Phil, I think, than you were saying. Believe it, it's even worse than that. I was going to talk a bit about WHO, the World Health Organization. And there you see a kind of really toxic mixture of bad science. So their latest paper is just complete junk science. They've taken all the worst things from California, put them in a blender and spat it out from Geneva. It's awful. Secondly, they haven't a clue about what's going on here. They know nothing about the industry, about the way the market functions, about who the players are, what the tobacco industry is doing, are completely ignorant about that, yet they're trying to design regulation that would deal with it. Thirdly, they have zero policy-making discipline. When you propose policies, you should have a sense of what the impacts are, you should consult, you should understand the costs and benefits, you should understand unintended consequences. They've done none of that. They just list policies and say, here you go, that's what we've done. They have some truly dreadful ideas. So WHO actually promotes outright prohibition, so that a country should just simply ban it, even though cigarettes are available everywhere in, say, Malaysia, Hong Kong, Singapore. Those countries are responding to signals from WHO that say ban vaping. They have incredibly authoritarian instincts. There isn't a rule or an intervention that they think is unacceptable. And then finally, they've created this incredibly insular forum where it's almost impossible for anyone who doesn't agree with them to attend and participate. They hold the meetings in places that are difficult to get to, and they make it extremely hostile to participate. And I'm afraid that the WHO, as it stands at the moment, is generalizing the kind of mindset that we see in the FDA around the entire world. And all I can say is that we just have to, I completely echo these points, you've got to get the money into advocacy, into understanding, into science. This will all be gone in a couple of years if you're not careful, because you've got to fight for the right policy environment. And that means being organized, having well-funded consumer groups, highly technocratic, capable trade associations, and you have to get out there and win the argument with the scientists, the regulators and the policymakers.
Juste en résumé, ce qui est important, ce que dit Clive, c'est qu'il dit qu'aujourd'hui tout est en train de se jouer. L'OMS est en train de confirmer sa volonté de vouloir éradiquer la vape et de supporter l'industrie du tabac. Il dit qu'il y a une chose importante aujourd'hui pour les industriels de la vape, avant tout, avant de faire du marketing, ce qui est important, c'est d'aider ceux qui représentent au niveau scientifique dans les études, de soutenir les études scientifiques, de soutenir les associations comme SOVAPE et d'autres qui sont des associations de réduction des risques, de soutenir les initiatives pour faire bouger la législation, pour faire bouger la perception des gens, pour faire aussi avancer les données scientifiques. Parce qu'il dit si on ne le fait pas maintenant, d'ici 1 ou 2 ans, ça risque d'être complètement terminé parce qu'on va laisser les politiciens faire les choses dans leur coin et on ne pourra pas agir. Ce n'est pas avec des stands et des choses comme ça qu'on va agir. Donc il dit vraiment mobilisez-vous, tout ce qui est industrie de la vape. On a besoin du soutien pour que nous, on puisse faire évoluer les choses au niveau des politiques de santé et des officiels.
Laurie, so I'm Laurie and Jolly, and I'm from the New Nicotine Alliance in the UK. We're a charity, and I'm an unpaid advocate. So I spend all of my time talking to people in public health and trying to change minds and hearts, which is what we do, and something that I've watched happen in France and in the States are very good at having these conversations and changing minds. One of the major problems that we have, though, is when we look at what legislation does, it rides roughshod over all of the work that we're doing. We become helpless in the face of it because when you look at what's going to be happening with the TPD, with the deeming regulations in the States, with what's going to be coming up with the WHO and COP7, all of these actions confirm the fears of the public and the people who aren't vaping yet, the smokers who are still smokers, and a lot of vapers too. They look at what the legislation is saying and it says there's something wrong here. There's something wrong and we need to control it. And each new bit of legislation that comes along and each news article and the media frenzy that goes on around it creates a lot of fear. Now, in France, in the UK, in the States, there is a very strong consumer organisation. So we're very supportive of one another and there's a good community. However, when you look at countries like Malaysia, South Africa, India, what's happening in these countries is you're looking at an industry that is essentially being completely wiped out before it's even had a chance to take hold. And they're countries with very, very high smoking rates and very dangerous products that they use above and beyond cigarettes in very, very toxic tobacco. So each new little bit of legislation, we sit back and you look at the global picture and you kind of think, God, in the UK, we're actually not doing too badly, despite the fact that we're going to be very negatively affected. You worry about what's happening in the States. You look at Australia and you wonder how somebody who's so apparently forward-thinking can be so backwards. And then you realise that we do still have our products to a degree, and you have to have fear for the lives that will literally be lost on a scale that is unimaginable over decades and decades, that we will look back in history and wonder why we wiped out a whole group of smokers in countries that don't have their own health systems that can support them, that look to the WHO and COP7 for all of their information. And we're left in a situation where we're fighting against that. And each country has its own issues. And in the UK, we can't take money from anybody. We have to be completely unaffiliated and unassociated with industry completely. So we can't take funding. We have to do everything for free. I'm just a consumer. That's all I am. And yet we're the ones that have to do the fighting. And in France, you've been an inspiration to watching how you guys work and how well the industry works. But there is so much to do, and the biggest problem we have is what the regulation says to the consumer and to the smoker, because it literally will cause deaths earlier than they ever needed to be on such a scale that we can't even imagine.
Donc, simplement pour résumer ce que vient de dire Lauriane, Lauriane vous rappelle qu'elle est une vapoteuse, elle est à la tête d'une association importante qui est pour supporter la vape. Elle n'a aucun conflit d'intérêt quand elle vous parle. Et elle vous explique qu'en tant que vapoteuse, les associations aujourd'hui sont extrêmement gênées, voire empêchées, parce que toutes les actions qu'ils font sont annulées par des lois. Donc c'est vraiment comme David contre Goliath. Donc la perception est en train de s'amplifier. L'OMS est en train de nous tirer dans les pattes. Toutes les lois qui sont en train de s'écrire actuellement annulent tout ce travail qui est fait au fur et à mesure. Et donc elle dit, en l'occurrence, on a besoin de soutien parce qu'aujourd'hui, tout ce qui est en train de se faire en parallèle, elle travaille avec les gens en Angleterre pour essayer de changer la perception. Elle dit qu'elle s'inspire énormément de ce qui se fait en France, qu'il y a un très bon échange entre la France et l'Angleterre, mais qu'aujourd'hui, ce qui est important, c'est qu'il faut, même si c'est David contre Goliath, qu'on s'organise beaucoup plus vite, qu'on fasse, avancer l'industrie, mais aussi qu'on fasse bouger les perceptions et les législations, parce que sinon, tout ce travail ne servira à rien.
Good morning, everybody. Clive, talking about the WHO, according to you, what is the way forward? What can we do to be heard or to make things moving?
There's several things. It's very difficult to access them directly, but here's a few things. First of all, we can organize a proper high credibility critique of their documents, which we are doing. So we're going to have a full detailed review of the paper that they have produced on ENDS, which is rubbish. I mean the paper, not the review. It is truly, truly dreadful piece of work. And so a group of scientists in the UK is preparing, and actually internationally, is preparing a response to that. Secondly, we can communicate with the delegates. So a piece of work I've been doing for some months now is to try to work out who is who. And you know, a lot of advocacy is just kind of perspiration, it's sweat basically, finding out all the names and email addresses and all these sort of things. So when the time comes, you can email them with a critique or with some points that you want to make or whatever. So there's that's going on, and we want to try and make sure that, you know, we are talking to, say, the French representative, whoever heads the French delegation needs to be hearing from French vapers, French vaping organizations, and the same everywhere worldwide, okay? It's just about getting the point across. The third area is the NGOs that do participate, okay? So there is a group called the Framework Convention Alliance, which participates as a single observer, and that comprises several hundred non-governmental organizations around the world, some of whom are sympathetic to the cause, okay? So we can work to try to make sure they take a progressive position, which they broadly did at COP6. Fourthly, we could try to make sure that they're getting some hostile or challenging news coverage by finding out which journalists are covering the event in Delhi and making sure that those journalists have a go-to place to people who aren't necessarily in Delhi, because there's not much point in going unless you're part of that little charmed circle. And then fifthly, I think we could try to get some delegates, some actual countries, to take positions that obstruct particularly bad positions, okay? Or insert positions that are basically fairly neutral. So I wrote to the European Council Working Group, which is a terrible bunch of people who work in Brussels, with some suggestions for what the Conference of the Parties could achieve for vaping. And these suggestions are all, they're like an inoculation. They're like you do something not too harmful in order to stop you doing something very harmful. So they're things like do more research, conduct a policy scan, have some wording on consumer involvement, that kind of thing. And these are things that we would like the European Union, if it wasn't so pathetic it might do this, these are things that would be good to get the European Union to champion as a body, because they are very influential in the FCTC, basically because they pay for a lot of it.
Thank you, Clive. Yeah, I think we really need to internationally group all together, I mean, policy and science, but also the consumers. What about the Consumers Association, Lorian? Are they going to merge, to join, to have some actions?
So at the minute, there are moves to have, at the very least, pan-European, but a kind of a global group of consumers, a consumer representation. So we can start to have these discussions, because there's so much disparity between the different countries and the different issues. And we are all busy and we're all tired, so we don't tend to talk to each other enough to find out what each country is having to deal with, and how we can actually work together and help solve one another's problems. So this is something that's being done right now and is being organised. It started at the Global Forum for Nicotine in Poland, and there are people working on that now. It's something that needs to happen because it's a global problem. It is literally a global problem. It's not, we can't be all protectionists about it in our own country and just think this is just the UK, it's just France, they can deal with their problems. We need to be involved, because not just for our own countries, because of the countries who don't have the benefit of questioning media, or don't have the benefit of strong public health who are on their side, and who are at the mercy of people like the WHO. So we have a duty to actually make this a global fight and take responsibility for what is happening around the world. So yes, it's happening. It's going to take a little bit of time, but hopefully we can start to have a wider effect rather than just what's going on our doorsteps.
And actually, I have a question for you, Clive. I mean, on legal level, about legislation and everything, how, as we consumer here, can support you in every other country? Do we have to join association, of course, support association, but can we be helpful in anyhow with your actions, you guys, and Dimitri's also in the US? So how can we as consumers support you too on that side?
The simple answer to that is get organized. You know, if you're me, it's easy to deal with one trade association or one consumer association. It's not easy to deal with 2 million consumers, you know, so that's the key thing. And then when you have people who have starting to do this, and like Lorian has and these guys have, you acquire expertise, then you can start, you understand the networks and the contacts and who's influential. You're recognized by the government as an entity. Then you can start to be influential. And then we can strategize together, work out what the best approaches are. We're gonna produce this critique of the WHO's paper very soon now. Who do I send it to? You know, that's the question for me, and this is why having an international, if I can send it to one person who runs an international consumer network, and they know, you know, 80 consumer organizations around the world, suddenly we're actually doing networking. And actually, you'd be surprised how hard it is. I've been for now 3 years trying to get a list of who's the point contact person in each country in the world. And it's surprisingly hard to do that.
So
but
actually,
get organized is the answer.
Yeah, so you're saying the first thing is to get organized is one thing, and the other thing is to help you optimize the action, because we're in a kind of a hurry. We didn't talk about reviewers, because that's important. You're like our advocate, you know, when you talk and you get opinions from the people, because you're every day having messages from consumer, from vapers. So what do you think, Phil and Dimitris? What do you think about the side, and what do you think about the position and the orientation that reviewers around the world could bring to the table, so that, you know, we help things?
I think the problem with the reviewers is they're not getting the right information from the groups that are leading us. And we've seen a huge confusion, especially in the US market, of what message we're trying to get across. So I think before we reach the reviewers, people that have 200, 300,000 subscribers like Phil and the rest of the guys that do review, we have to have somebody giving them the correct information and not a mixed message of confusion like we have right now in the United States. And before I start this, let me tell you that I don't like the TBD at all. I don't want people to think that I'm for the TBD, but I think a lot of people saw the FDA deeming regulations and they said, oh, thank God the TBD is not that bad, which it is. It's really bad. So, but the problem that we have in the United States is the consumer doesn't really care. They just want to vape. They just want to stay off cigarettes. You know, it's very hard for them to get involved in a political battle, and that's just a general population issue, not just a vapor issue. You can tell by the numbers of people that vote every year in the United States. They're just dropping and dropping it. People don't want to get involved in a political battle simply because I truly believe they think that they're doing something that's less harmful, and that why should I have to fight for my life? It doesn't make any sense. Why would the government want to take this away from me? So at the end of the day, yeah, we need to have good, I mean, in the United States, we have the CASA, which is the Consumer Alternatives for Smoke-Free Alternatives, that's leading the consumer group. They've been around for a very long time. They have a database of about 100,000 people in the United States. That number is extremely low versus the number of people that actually use the product in the United States. So in order to reach a broader audience, we need to be able to finance that. We need to be able to market that. We need to be able to network, as Clive said, and try to increase our numbers in our databases. So when we go talk to politicians, they actually know we're representing a huge portion of their constituents that are voting for them, and also a huge portion of people that are paying taxes in the country. So getting organized before we reach that level is vital, and the reviewers as well. And Phil will tell you, he's been doing this for a very long time. Even he is confused as what message to get across as a reviewer, right, Phil?
Absolutely. I don't like to talk about things that I'm not an expert on, okay? And it's funny because the more I say that I'm not an advocate, the more I get invited to do advocacy panels, right? So, but I can guarantee you that if this was not a talk about advocacy, if this was, we were giving away free e-liquid and devices, there would be absolutely no room down there. We would need a bigger building, okay? But it's the same way with the videos. It's the same way with the reviews. If I start talking about advocacy, my numbers go down, right? Because that's not what people care about. They come to know me as I'm showing them shiny things, and I tell people how they work, and I do testing on them. So, I mean, I do feel a bit of a responsibility to talk about advocacy, but it's still not my area of expertise. And when the FDA deeming regulations have happened, right? See, I like to use the term sofa scientists, okay? Because people read something about nickel, and nickel is bad on Wikipedia, so therefore they say it's bad in vaping. Or they read something bad here, it's you know, it's okay to use in an iron, what do you call it, a frying pan, therefore it's okay to no. That's not how it works, right? So we have all these sofa scientists out there, but now we have sofa advocates out there, right? All of a sudden, everybody is an expert in advocacy. But the problem is, all of those experts are leading people in these directions over here, and there's no like one concerted common voice, right? So I try to listen to folks like Dimitri, groups like SOVAPE, groups like VTA, groups like CASA, and I will just give their information and do my very best not to make up my own information. Because I don't like to make up information. I like to give as many facts as possible.
So actually, as a matter of fact, from what you say, it's easier for you to advocate for mods and atomizers than to advocate about legislation and, you know, information around vaping, right?
Absolutely.
I think, just 1 second, so I think what he's experienced and what we've experienced in the United States is that I truly believe that it's just a matter of people not believing that the government will take this away. Simply because you quit smoking, something that they asked you to do all these years, you quit smoking, you feel better, your health is better, the people around you feel better, and you're shocked. You just can't believe that this will happen. In fact, it's happened. The deeming rule in the United States will eliminate 99.9% of the products on the market within 2 years. There's no doubt about it. Nobody in this room here will go through a PMTA process. Nobody. And if anybody tells you that they are full of crap. So we have to understand what we're facing. We're facing a prohibition. I mean, this is This is one of the biggest tragedies in the world. Smokers are going to die because of these deeming regulations. So we really need to get that message across to the consumer that they're not going to have access to these products. They're not going to be able to choose their favorite liquid or their favorite atomizer in less than 2 years. A lot of businesses are closing now. So if we can get that and people realize how critical it is, maybe we'll see a change and people will be more interested in watching an advocacy video than a video about the newest and the greatest hype of devices.
Dimitris, what do you think should be the role of the industry in all that?
I think that we have crossed a lot of the consumer and industry, especially in the United States. I don't know so much in the EU. I think we need to separate the two. We have groups in the United States that are asking consumers for donations to fight political battles and lobbying. That shouldn't be done. That should be strictly the industry. Our system works a little bit different than your system, but the industry is responsible for keeping these products on the market. You need to fight for your right to be able to sell this product to make money. The consumer has a job, but it has to be separated from the funding that the industry is going to spend. For the last 4 years, I've been asking the industry to raise money for science, to give scientists, to give public health experts like Clive Bates the financial freedom to be able to put the information and the evidence that we need to prove that this is a less harmful product. And all we're doing is spending money on marketing and on vape models. And unfortunately, this is what's gotten us to this point. If we can't back up what we're saying, all the politicians that are seeing is like, oh, that's what happened back in the 70s and the 80s with the tobacco companies. They said, oh, smoking was great for you. And now we're saying the same thing, and we can't back it up with science. Even though we have plenty of studies so far, we don't have enough to prove our message. The industry needs to take care of that. The consumer needs to take care of their right to be able to live a smoke-free life.
Dimitris, just a question actually. So you asked the industry to come in and to participate. So, you know, we're talking these days, a lot of us, taxes all over the world. In the US, we're talking about 95% on wholesale price. So should we think on an inner tax from the industry to you guys so that, you know, you get the minimum amount of money for you?
It's been proposed and it's never happened, unfortunately. When we did the study with Dr. Fasalinos for the temperature control, I mean, I literally had to go do the ice bucket challenge on Facebook to raise money for that. I mean, how ridiculous is that, right? Just to prove that the coil that they used in the Portland study was burnt. And I literally had to go on Facebook and challenge people to raise money. I mean, we're talking about $80,000. I guarantee you that the prime sponsor here spent that much money here at the expo. So, yeah, it would be nice to have a tax. Unfortunately, we're not there yet because the industry is so disorganized. We're not there to be able to do that. But it would be nice to see every company attach themselves to a professional trade association and let that trade association raise the money for, you know, whatever they need to spend it. Just like we do with Sevia USA, the Chinese Manufacturers Association that we formed with Phil. We bring money from China into the advocacy game, and we spend it to the various groups that are out there fighting for one particular reason. So more organization, bringing all the industry together, whichever group they choose to attach themselves to, is the only way to fund money to one source.
Can I ask you guys, I mean, looking into the United States and trying to understand the advocacy that's going on there, I must say it looks quite confusing. So is there like a 20-second pitch that you would give to any vapor, any vape store owner, any business along the lines of, you know, this is what to do, you know, that you could finish any review with? Don't forget, write to your congressman, ask them to back the Cole Amendment, shift the grandfather date, and then we've lived to fight another day. Have you got a pitch like that that is just totally usable everywhere by everyone? Because that's not what I see.
Actually, I'm going to take the recording of you saying that right now, and I'm going to add it to the end of all of my videos, and you are the pitch now. Congratulations.
Yeah. When I was doing the presentation that I was going to show, and what I presented in China was that there's only two things that we can do in the United States right now to fix it. Number one is the lawsuit. We've sued the government. Thankfully, we can do that easier than you guys here in the EU for our First Amendment. So we have an ongoing lawsuit that is the Right to Be Smoke-Free Coalition that's been supported by all the groups, all the advocacy groups, Sevia USA, the Chinese manufacturers, all the top donor into that lawsuit trying to challenge the deeming regulations. That lawsuit, again, should be funded by the industry. The vapors should not pay for that lawsuit. It should be the industry paying for it, and that's what we support. And then the next thing is the Cole Bishop Amendment, obviously. Congress in the United States is the only body of government that can fix the FDA. That's the only person. Even if Trump is elected or Clinton is elected, it's irrelevant. Congress is the only one that can do it. So as a consumer, your biggest power is your power to vote, because you can go and drop a piece of paper and remove somebody from their position in Congress. So if vaping in your life has made such a huge difference to make you a one-issue voter, you need to let your congressman know. You need to tell them that you're going to vote against them if they don't support this, your family is going to vote against them, your inner circle is going to vote against them, and trust me, in all the politician meetings that I've had, nobody cares that I quit smoking with vaping. Not one person told me, oh, congratulations. But when I tell them that I represent an association in Tennessee of 100 businesses and 800 votes, they tell me to come in and sit down. I'll make you coffee. Tell me what I can do for you. Because that's how important it is for people to vote and let their congressmen know. Cole Bishop Amendment is the only vehicle right now in the United States that could move the predicate date, which is extremely important. And of course, supporting the lawsuit and trying to challenge them. Those are the two things that we can do.
Dimitris, just something, because the industry, you know, if they would be willing to fund the studies and help you advocate, what would be the perception of the stakeholders, the official, knowing that the studies have been funded for the whole amount or for some side of it? How would they perceive it? Would they say, okay, that's bad science because it has been funded? So how?
Sure. I mean, it's a challenge for everybody that's in the public health for that, but we don't have another option, right? We don't have another. Most of the studies that I've done, I've kind of crowdfunded them to kind of look like it's coming from everywhere. It's not coming from one particular group. But at the end of the day, those that are against us will say that this was a funded study. But what we can do is, and this is something that Dr. Fasalinos taught me, is we can challenge them to repeat the same study exactly how we did it. And if they cannot show different results, then we can be validated that way. And I think that's the right way to go moving forward. Just like we're challenging their studies, just like we challenged the Portland study with a dry coil, and Dr. Fasalinos replicated it and showed that the results that they found were false and fraud and manufactured. Let us challenge them to do the same thing.
On the question of what more can industry do, I think one of our biggest problems is we're fighting fires all the time. Every little thing that comes up, we're having to fight those fires. It's tiring, it's exhausting. The problem is the industry is creating some of those themselves. So it's a big industry, and you look around this room, and actually one of the things I do like about this expo is it's very stylish, it's dignified, and it's very grown up. Unfortunately, in the UK we're doing it, in Malaysia, in the States, you look at some of the product design and marketing, and we've got to fight back against what that is going to cause. I saw yesterday or the day before Pokemon e-liquids. Pokemon e-liquids being sold in the UK, having been imported from Malaysia. Now, the industry isn't the one, and the guy who runs the shop or the people who made the liquids, they're not the ones who have to go and sit with the decision makers, who have to go and talk to people in public health about getting them to understand that actually we're not trying to enlist children. This isn't about children. Adults like this stuff too. It makes it virtually impossible for us to have that conversation when there are Pokemon e-liquids. Now, the thing is, I understand, and most people understand, that the existence of those isn't actually to appeal to children. They didn't make them to appeal to children because adults like those things. I play Pokemon Go and I'm 38 years old. But you can't look at it from the outside with all of the arguments and believe that. I don't think anybody's aiming this stuff at kids. But every time the industry comes up with something ridiculous like that, we have to fight that. We have to go and have that and try and overcome all those issues, because the children argument is the thing that gets thrown at us all of the time. And the industry has to be more responsible. We can't say, don't kill us with regulation. You know, some of this we can do ourselves, like most products do, if the industry is bringing out things like Pokemon e-liquid. And when you come to these events, the other major thing the industry has to do and take responsibility for, there's a move towards forgetting about the smoker. I mean, a lot of us are established vapors, and we're using all manner of exciting things, and we want the clouds, and we want the complication and the societal, the kind of community element. most smokers don't think like that. They just want something that works. And what the industry isn't even doing is innovating at that lower level, that entry point, hasn't changed since I started nearly 4 years ago. And we are in the same position. So while the entire industry kind of caters to people like me and the people that come to events like this, it has to remember, and shop owners have to remember, the people that you actually need to be looking and remember who are most important in this are the guys who haven't switched to vaping yet. So the industry isn't, the industry is doing things that are causing us problems and potentially harming their future customers. Even not looking at regulation, but you're looking at behaviour now, there's got to be a lot more responsibility taken by the industry.
And actually, you don't even... Phil can say something about this, but for grown-up adults, they have the twerking and everything. For the kids and young adults, they have the Pokemon. Yeah. And Phil, what do you think in the US happening with all the twerking? Is that a good image?
So, no. No, there's a lot of bad image in vaping right now, and I'm really glad that you touched on that, because I tried to allude to it before. It's going to be very, very difficult to be taken seriously as an industry if we have Pokemon e-liquids out there. If we have e-liquids that now come in Capri Sun packaging or juice box packaging. You know, I mean, I've gone on my tirades before about childish labeling and brand infringement, and it's so sad that real advocates not only have to fight governments, but they have to fight the industry that they're trying to protect. And I see that more and more every single day. It's not good. There was a time, and I said the first time I came to Vapexpo, it was such a breath of fresh air compared to what we see in the States with a lot of the shows. Because there was a time that I can go into a show and I could defend everything that I saw. I can't do that anymore. I can't, it's very difficult for me to take my mother to a show and say, look at how great vaping is. Or a smoker to a show and say, look at how great vaping is. Because you know what? Most of what they see would scare the shit out of them and they would run the other way. Okay? And you know, I understand, you know, the hobbyist aspect and the enthusiast aspect, but sometimes it's all we see when it comes to vaping. We don't see one of the greatest things that I've ever seen was at a vape shop in Florida, and the door opened and a little old lady comes in with her walker, and she walks up to the counter and she bought her e-liquid and she bought her coils and she turned around. How come we don't see that as the face of vaping at times? I just did a show and it was at a casino. And there were two things that happened. First of all, at this casino, there are about 5,000 smokers there. Was there any promotion to get those smokers into the show? No. Was there any... Personally, I think everybody who had a room key should have said, hey, are you a smoker? Here's a free ticket to come and see the vape show. Okay? Or everybody who purchased the ticket should have gotten another ticket, a companion ticket, go out there, grab a smoker, bring them in, and we'll give you a percentage off of whatever, and we'll give the smoker a percentage off of whatever. Okay? But here's something else that happened at that show. A woman from the, I believe it was the Tennessee Smoke-Free Association, not Tennessee, Kentucky Smoke-Free Association. I have Dimitri sitting next to me. She met an older woman out of the show who was interested in getting into vaping. So she said, Phil, can you help me find a starter kit? Okay? And I looked around the entire show. Do you know, I found one starter kit, but I didn't review it yet, so I didn't want to recommend it. One. She had to call a vape shop to have them bring a starter kit to a vape show to give to a smoker. When did we lose the idea of what this is supposed to be all about? When did we forget that this is about risk reduction, that this is about health, that this is about saving lives? Because I think we lost it. Or at least I think a majority or a percentage of the industry has lost that.
That was exactly the point I wanted to make. I mean, we need to reach out smokers. And that's what I constantly tell vape shop owners and so on. And I said, you have to find the smokers outside. I mean, and look, all this industry they're mostly focusing on established vapors. They're not they're not doing anything to grab the smokers outside. And as you said, why, for example, yesterday it was a public day, why each of us receiving our badges, why weren't we asked to go out and bring us smokers back for free?
Yeah, but then the industry could answer you that with a TPD, they're not supposed to make indirect or indirect advertising, so that how can we reach out to smokers? No, but I know, but tell them, I mean, what do you think? They say we have a law on our shoulder, so how can we advocate outside without being,
Sure. I'd go to jail if I have to help a smoker. I mean, as a consumer, you can go out there and help anybody that you want to. But to give you an example to what Lorian said earlier about how difficult it is for advocates, August 8th, 2016 is when the dimming regulations took effect in the United States. What did the FDA do the first 2 weeks? They went online and they purchased with underage ID liquids from websites that didn't have age verification. And also they purchased specifically branded liquid like cotton candy, gummy bears, I love donuts, and so forth and so forth. So all these products that me and Phil at least publicly for the last 2 years have been trying to get people to change the name, they went and purchased all these products. They sent out letters, 55 warning letters to their websites saying that we purchased them as underage. Guess what's going to happen at the first hearing, October 11th in Washington, D.C., when we have to go and fight the FDA in court? They're going to lift up these papers, they're going to lift up these bottles, they're going to say, Judge, look at what this industry is doing. They're killing our kids. They're hooking the new generation of addicts. And there's nothing that me or Clive or any other advocate in this industry can say to defend that position.
The other problem with that, too, is when we speak out against those companies, it is free advertising for those companies. So we're in a catch-22, right? Because if we say, and the perfect example is the Pokemon e-liquid, right? I saw a post that he put, and then you start reading the comments on the post. How could they do that? Oh my God, that's wrong. What's going on? Where do I buy some? Okay? So if you are supporting that, if you are buying that, sorry, you're part of the problem too.
And Clive, I have a question for you. So you're advocating, you're doing all this job toward stakeholders, officials. So on the other hand, you have to watch your back from the industry because sometimes, they do their foolish. That's so. So how hard is it for you to explain, and justify perhaps to the institution that is not the real image, and we're still building the image and building advocacy, and so we are kind of beginners, new in the rank.
Yeah. The difficulty is not actually explaining what's going on. The difficulty is getting to the place where you are explaining it to someone who can make a decision or can change things. And that's the problem. The access to decision makers. I mean, the European Union legislature, while it was making the Tobacco Products Directive, incredibly inaccessible. The Council of Ministers meets behind closed doors, takes arbitrary decisions. The Commission completely unresponsive. WHO is the same. They just ignore whatever you say. So that's the real problem, is getting in the room. It's right, the industry does do some pretty stupid things. It doesn't think politically. I happen to be less concerned. I mean, this argument doesn't work in politics, but it does work in public health. It doesn't actually matter if kids buy flavors, because the only kids that are buying them are people who smoke or would smoke if they weren't available. So if you want to look at where the big public health dividend is coming from in the United States, it's kids finding e-cigarettes attractive. Okay, and if they're attracted by gummy bear, which I don't for 1 minute believe they are, then that's a good thing. Now that argument is logical, it just doesn't work in politics. I think the second thing is, all the people who are talking about kids seem to have absolutely no idea about kids. I think if I wanted to set up a brand to sell to teenagers, and we're talking about adolescents now, not children, They're basically skanky little boys and girls with their baseball caps on the wrong way around, hanging around in street corners. They're not little cherubs who are sitting at home in their mum and dad's kitchen. I would call my flavor something like napalm or, you know, Call of Fruity or something like that. I would not be calling it gummy bear or something that reinforces the idea of childishness. What teenagers really want to be childish? So there's a massive amount of nonsense spoken, even about kids, about whether kids vaping is a bad thing or a good thing. It's probably a good thing. It's hard to win that argument, but it's probably a good thing. These names, they bear no relation to me. The one study that did look at what preferences kids had, the results weren't statistically significant, but the flavors that were chosen showed most interest to non-vaping, non-smoking kids were classic tobacco and single malt Scotch whiskey. Now those are not childish flavors, are they? They are flavors that reinforce a sense of adulthood. So as soon as you get into this world of kids, and kids are used as a bargaining chip in this. They're used as a human shield for to give respectability to very disrespectful and disingenuous ideas, I think. But if you really examine what's going on with kids, actually there's an incredibly positive story to tell.
Yeah, and I think, Clive, we should remind that this argument of the kids, we had it years and years ago with snus in Europe. That's always the same argument. I mean, they're just playing with it.
But also, on the other hand, on the regulation side, actually, they're really hiding on a day-to-day basis behind the children protection. And they're advocating all the time that they justify their decision, their rulemaking, because they want to protect children. So on one hand, I agree with you. It's a good thing, actually, that, you know, kids and children may be more interested into e-cig than smoking. But on the other hand, legislation and policymakers are coming at us and they tell us, we want to protect the children. So every time we allow you to advocate, to make advertising on anything, it's somehow we hurt children. So how could we answer this issue with policymakers?
That's a great question, but we can't. I mean, there's nothing, as Clive said, there's nothing that I could say to a politician. We know the industry. We know that the number one customer for the tobacco companies is still the teenager. We know most people start smoking at 12, 13, 14 years old. By the time they're 16, 17, they're 3-year addicted tobacco smokers. I have kids myself. I would much rather give them an electronic cigarette at 17. But there's no way that I can say that publicly to a politician and be accepted. However, we have to have these regulations that are actually protecting kids. The FDA deeming regulations are doing nothing to protect the kids. In fact, 48 out of the 50 states had you can't purchase these products under 18. So the FDA making a federal rule to protect the kids is completely ridiculous because there's nothing in that rule that's going to protect the kids from accessing these products. Or if they want to vape, especially if they're smokers, they should have that access to those products as well, too, because they are less harmful. So going back to what I think we need to bring more evidence that this product is so much less harmful than combustible tobacco in order to be able to win that argument. We also have to be able to show that most of the kids start smoking at a young age and how quickly they become hooked to combustible tobacco. Because a 17-year-old, in California, they passed a law now that you have to be 21 to buy vapor products, where in a country where you're 18, they send you to Afghanistan and you come back with no legs or no arms. Yet, you cannot purchase a less harmful alternative to combustible tobacco in the state of California. It's completely ridiculous. So, again, proving that the product is so much less harmful than combustible tobacco, proving that these kids start smoking at a younger age and they're still, after 20 years of tobacco control in the United States, what they claim as victory, still the teenager is the number one customer for the tobacco company. So really, tobacco control has done nothing. So those are the two issues that I think we need to take up and then show to the legislators that this is an alternative.
And actually, there is perhaps a third issue I would like to raise with you guys, and then we will wrap up. It's about the quit or die. We hear that everywhere in the whole world because we have kind of a tradition wherever in the world about we need to quit with pain, with suffering, like a Christian something. And so today, all over the world, we see advertising say you have to be willing to, you have to suffer, you have to deserve quitting. So either you quit cold turkey or you die. So how can we address that and on a day-to-day basis on your level, and how can we also as an industry go, do you think it's a bad sentence, of course? Should you say cold turkey is good, but also e-cigs, other solutions? So what do you think about the big motto we have everywhere in the world, quit or die?
I'll go first. Obviously, we were not born with a cigarette in our mouth, and we were not born with a vaporizer in our mouth. The best thing to do is not to do anything, correct? Not to smoke or vape. However, a lot of these legislators and a lot of the public health that are opposing, like Stanton Glantz, that have this ideology against anything that's nicotine related or anything that's pleasurable, have forgot about that exact fact, how pleasurable it is for us to smoke. Nobody that smoked before will tell you they didn't like smoking, even though they knew it would kill you. But we enjoyed smoking. It was a physiological effect of the actual hand-to-mouth action, the sociological effect that goes along with it, much more than I think it was the addiction to nicotine as it was the actual act of smoking. What vaping does is it mimics that pleasure without the harm. So, quit or die. Yes, absolutely. If you can quit without the help of these products, that's the best thing for you to do. However, if the NRT options that are out there cannot help you, like they didn't help me or didn't help Phil quit, this is another viable option. This is another alternative for you to enjoy the act of smoking without having the harm that combustible tobacco brings.
It's quite funny listening to that. I'm not sure what the industry itself can do. I think we're in a transitionary period where smokers are finally admitting, and vapors, because of the sheer number of vapors, you're now hearing more people say, I enjoyed smoking, I liked that. And when I started doing public health conferences and talking to people in tobacco control, and you look them in the eye and you say, I liked smoking, I enjoyed the habit, I liked the inhale and the exhale, their tiny minds explode. They genuinely cannot understand that you're not just a victim and that you're not full of shame and you're not embarrassed by yourself, because that's what's been perpetuated in society for 20, 30 years now, is that smokers are pathetic, sad people. So one of the things that vaping has been allowed to happen is for people to go, I actually enjoy the habit. And exactly as Dimitri says, when you can replicate that habit in a safer way, you can continue to do it and enjoy yourself, and it gives you a sense of confidence and a sense of accomplishment. But this is something that consumers have to do. I don't think industry is in a position to say you can vape, enjoy it. You know, they're not for regulatory reasons, for just simple business sense and being under so much scrutiny from the powers that be. The industry has to be very careful what it says. What we do as consumers is we've got to get the people who make the rules to understand this is something that is okay, it is acceptable, and that when they finish talking to me at their conference, they're going to go to the bar and they're going to have a glass of wine. And that's fine. Or at break time, they're going to go and have a cup of coffee or an espresso or two or three. That's all fine. And when we can get into position as advocates, as we've got nicotine, or at least the inhalation with or without the nicotine, as socially acceptable and non-damaging to society at large as having coffee and as drinking alcohol. Obviously, alcohol is quite a dubious one, but it can be done sensibly. That's when we win, but that is our job. I don't understand how the industry at the moment is in a position to do that.
And I think the final outcome is to have, at some point, nicotine recognized as a normal substance. Human being has always been looking for psychoactive drugs. Nicotine is not worse than caffeine or alcohol when it's, a reasonable quantity. So we just need to change the mind of all the people, and particularly the lawmakers and so on, that nicotine is just there, it will stay, and we have a much, much safer way of using it. And we shouldn't condemn people for using it, because it's just a pleasurable drug, and that's it.
I really strongly agree with that. Even the people who are pro-vaping in public health, many of them still have a sort of illness, treatment, cure model to it, that you're basically giving up something. And I think you're right, there's a quasi-religious thing about the purgative ritual of getting the poison out of your body and all this sort of stuff. I mean, that's how it's spoken of. And actually what there really is I would say it's a sort of pleasure technology innovation kind of model here. What's happening is something that people find pleasurable. It's a normal psychoactive drug like caffeine, like alcohol. It's not particularly harmful in its own right. What's happened is that if you like, a malfunction in the earlier technology, the smoking that gives you cancer and heart disease, is being addressed by a technology transformation, which at its heart is driven by energy technologies. The energy in cigarettes comes from combustion of organic material, and that has the side effects of all the diseases. The energy source in e-cigarettes, as you all know, is an electrical source, and the innovation has happened now and not before because we have battery technology driven by the mobile phone industry and the mobile device industry that is sufficient energy and power density to make viable consumer products. And that is technology working as it should do. It's obsoleting an old technology. It'll take 25 years to do that, but 25 more years of innovation, providing the lunatics at the FDA, European Commission, WHO don't prevent it. Can you imagine what these products will be like in 25 years? There's no way that old technology, combustible products will be able to compete. Everyone who wants to use nicotine will be using it through some modern electrically heated device or some kind of aerosol spray or some other non-combustible technology. And that is how progress happens. It doesn't happen through coercion, through punishment, through bans, through force. It happens because better technologies displace worse technologies. And that's the prize that we've got to keep in mind. And that's why FDA is so dangerous. It stands right in the way of that path of innovation that would, if you like, almost through natural forces, obsolete the cigarette by the middle of the century.
One thing that I want to bring up is us as industry, after August 8th, 2016 in the United States, we can't say that this product is less harmful than traditional cigarettes. We have an effective gag on the industry. We can't advertise. So the FDA and the government has asked us to lie. I mean, we're committing fraud to our customers by telling them that this product is just as harmful as traditional cigarettes. And innovation has stopped. FDA stopped innovation, as Clive said, with the batteries, because after August 8th, we can't make any changes. So if we discover that this device in September has an issue with a battery, we can't go back and fix it. The FDA has effectively stopped all that without filing a new application for the product. So the actual act of protecting public health is happening, the complete opposite is happening with the FDA. They're actually harming public health with not allowing these products to innovate and progress into the market and let the market dictate, as it's done in the past 6-7 years, and we've come to the point where the products are working so great right now.
I have a question as a consumer, because when I listen to you guys, you're saying back to basics, we need industry commitments, and we need vapers and people to help us organize, because we're kind of more than in a hurry. But when we think about smoker, a smoker is more exposed to a cigarette now these days than to a vaporizer. So these guys are also hurting us because we don't know what's inside. Perhaps that tobacco is all this same substance. And so when we talk back to basic for a smoker, you know, when he goes wherever he goes, he's got the cigarettes more next to his door than a regular vaporizer. So how do we advocate against this? Because, you know, now from my point of view, legislation is mixing both. Is mixing or vaping stuff with the cigarettes. And for them, that kind of the same thing. Not
in the United States. The only cigarettes will be allowed in the United States if they make a PMTA application go through. Back to the basics. Something me and Phil have been doing for the last couple of years is trying to go back to the basics. I think it's extremely important for the consumer not to advocate vaping as they vape. I think a lot of us forgot how we start. I started with a cigarette from V2. Was it the greatest device? No. This was 6 years ago. But guess what? I have to credit them because I quit smoking with that product, right? So let's not forget what we had to go through 6 years ago. We have a lot of technology today, but just because I vape on this does not necessarily mean that this is what I have to give to a smoker to quit. Especially with low nicotine, high power devices does not satisfy the nicotine craving Phil?
That is it's such an important comment. A friend of mine just sent a friend of his who was a smoker into a vape shop, okay? And they came out with a SOVAPE tank and a high wattage device and a 6 milligram liquid, okay? Went back to smoking almost the very next day. It did not do it for them, okay? Now, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that setup, because that setup is going to work for some people, right? But the experience that people are getting with today's vaping is so different from a cigarette, okay? That is why I personally champion the mouth-to-lung style of vaping, because I think it is a wildly important style for the smoker who's looking to transition. You want that smoker to have the same experience. You want that smoker to feel comfortable about with what they're doing. You want that firmer draw. You want that throat hit. You want them to experience a cigarette but in a vaporizer, okay? Once we get them, I don't care where they go. I don't care if they go to cloud chasing. I don't care if they go to direct lunging. I don't care if they go to any of that. But I still think it is extremely important to give them a similar experience to start. Otherwise, you potentially lost them.
I don't want to think people, when I go to politicians in the United States, because the big tobacco companies are very influential in the United States. They support a lot of these politicians. They give a lot of money to their campaigns. So I think it's very wrong for us to say, screw big tobacco. I can't stand big tobacco. I don't mind the cigarettes being on the market. And this is what I tell politicians. I don't mind that big tobacco has now entered the e-cig game. If they produce a product, that's great. That's less harm. I believe in harm reduction. I don't care who sells it. But I want to be able to be on the market to compete with big tobacco. I don't want them to be the only game in town. And I think a lot of the politicians appreciate the fact that we're not really against the tobacco companies. We just want to be on the market to be able to compete with our products. And if somebody quits with a big tobacco e-cig, guess what? For our industry, tomorrow he might be our customer as well, too. So we should be able to welcome that from a business standpoint as well, too.
By the way, that Cigalike product, I still contend that that is one of the most important vaping products on the market today. The disposable, because when people go in to buy their cigarettes, first of all, where are they going to buy their cigarettes? They're not going to buy their cigarettes in a vape shop. They're going to buy their cigarettes in a gas station, in a C-store, okay? So when they go in to buy their cigarettes, they're going to look right next to the cigarette, and they're going to see that electronic cigarette, and they're going to say, I heard about those. And on a whim, they're going to buy one of those, okay? You better give them a real quality vape right then and there, or you've potentially lost them forever. That's why I contend that that is one of the most important products on the market.
I did mystery shopper. I don't vape myself, but I did a mystery shopper exercise for a friend who's a smoker, and his health is failing. He's about my age. Health is failing. I thought, okay, I'll get him started on e-cigs. So I thought, oh, this will be easy. I'll just go onto the internet and everything will be explained. Oh my God, it's so bewildering. If you just think, right, I'm a smoker, I'll just go onto the internet and I'll work out what to do. It is totally bewildering. You can be shown a YouTube video. It'll be an hour long. Somebody purporting to tell you how to get started, and you're completely baffled within about the first 3 minutes as they talk about something like this. The industry, and that, I mean the people in this room, needs a kind of innovation, needs to make better high-end products, but needs to make better entry-level products and understand a pathway from being a committed smoker to being a satisfied vapor. And it doesn't start with one of these. I mean, you're asking a smoker to put up maybe, what's that, €100 or something, probably more. So nobody makes a bet like that because they don't know whether they're actually going to like it or it's going to work. So you have to have things that have a low entry cost, or no one will make the jump unless they're very rich. So I agree with this about cigalikes, and I think the key thing at the entry level is that it's just really easy. And I think if the tobacco companies have understood one thing, they've understood that. If you look at their ranges, they're very simple, they're very modular. You just buy the price, like buying a razor. You buy the razor, you buy the blades, and off you go. There's no business about, oh, I need to change a coil, or I need to do this, that, or the other. It's made very, very simple. And I think that saying you're against the tobacco companies is just the wrong way of thinking about it now, because the chances are, the way the regulation's going, they'll be the only ones left standing. So the key thing with them is not could you please get out of the market, is could you please make better products that actually work and what people want. And there's an influencing job to do on them about how they engage with the market. And unfortunately, as I say, I think they are going to become more important, not less important in the market as time goes on, just because of the way regulation plays so hard to their strengths and so hard against everybody else's.
There is another issue, actually, with the cigar-like thing. There's probably more specific to the EU because of the TPD bringing in the 20 milligrams per milliliter maximum concentration. We know from work that Varsalinos has done and others that in order for cigar-likes to be effective, you've got to have far higher levels of nicotine, like 45 milligram per milliliter fluids in there for them to work. One of the major issues is once the TPD is transposed completely and we lose the 20 milligrams, the cigar-likes actually become exceptionally ineffective, and that's really concerning. Now, in the UK, you're actually seeing fewer and fewer cigar-likes on the street. You're seeing people with at least an Ego and a CE4. But as I said earlier, that Ego and that CE4 is the same thing that I started on 4 years ago. And the fact is, now the juices are being reduced, we also know that that isn't particularly effective at delivering nicotine. So for the transitioning smoker who needs the higher level of nicotine in a lower powered device, we've got a big problem once that 20 milliliter cap comes in. And I don't know how we get past that. I don't know what they're going to have to do. But the innovation has got to make those lower end simple devices far more efficient.
I think it starts with us, with the community. Me and Phil still vape 12 milligram liquid, and we go to some events and we tell people we vape 12, and they look at us like we're dinosaurs. Or, well, we are. It's true. But we were at an event in Canada. We're walking around the event in Canada. We wanted to try liquid, and there was nothing over 3 milligram. So I think, yeah, even here, right? So I think it starts with us. Just because we vape, I hear people all the time, oh, I lowered my nicotine. I started with 24, and now I vape 3 milligram. And I try to remind them that when you vape 24 milligram, you vape 3 mils a day. And now with 3 milligram, you vape 10 mils a day. So guess what? You're taking the same nicotine as you were intaking before. So I think it starts with us we have to be transparent, we have to be honest, and we need to be able to relay that to the smoker as well. The way that we vape today is not what a smoker needs to quit.
There's so many people out there, they're so proud, they're so excited that they vape lower nicotine now. And I had a conversation with Dr. Varsalinos a couple of years ago, and I said, Doc, I'm thinking about dropping my nicotine, right? What do you think you're going to vape more? And I said, well, probably. He goes, raise your nicotine, vape less. He goes, it'll be safer for you. But, to touch on the technology aspect, there's so much. Could you see my mother vapes, and she's my litmus test, okay? So here, Mom, here's this device. Now, you're going to have to adjust the wattage based on the resistance that you have. If you want to run temperature control, you have to set it for the right coil material. So you're going to have to either set it for nickel or titanium or stainless steel. Now, if you're not using any of those materials, you're going to have to go in there and access the custom TCR menu. And you're going to have to set the custom TCR menu. And, oh, God, Mom, please, don't vape the nickel in wattage mode because that's not good at all, okay? My mother is a woman that if I give her 2 tanks, she will screw the wrong coil into the wrong tank 100% of the time, even though it's statistically impossible, and you want her to operate that?
No, but actually you're right, because when a smoker enters a vape shop every day, I see also myself, the people that just come here to stop smoking or to buy one, and the guy is just say, okay, do you want stainless steel? Do you want Kenthal? Okay, okay, you're gonna buy this, but I'm gonna, take that off, take that part off, so that you don't have TCR on or and the guy, he needs to be PhD, he needs to be a PhD to even run it.
Yeah. It's very intimidating. Could you imagine the smoker walking into a vape shop and there's all these devices and there's all these liquids, and now you are in control of that guy behind the counter. And that guy behind the counter is a very important person because they're either going to listen to you and understand what you need and lead you in the right direction, or they're going to sell what they're making the most margin on. And that's not a good thing.
And actually, and also you talked about that just a few minutes before, but actually the point is there is kind of a bad conscience about nicotine, even among vapers. You know, there was kind of a competition the last few years about, okay, I have to lower as fast as I can. And then we had the cloud chasing, so it was even harder to be on high level of nicotines because of the cloud chasing. And outside, the community and the legislator and the stakeholders, they try to make us feel guilty about consuming nicotine. And so everywhere, even though we try to convince people about vaping, there is a second battle that comes up, which is a battle to make people understand and raise awareness that nicotine is not that harmful. And it's not a drug addiction, you know, such as caffeine and the others. So we have actually two battles going on. And actually from what I see on my level, we see the campaign from government saying, okay, nicotine is bad, nicotine is bad. So we have so many fires, as you say, to be on.
I think all vendors in vape shops should understand that nicotine is a tool, and they have to teach every smoker how to use this tool to stay off cigarettes. And even in confirmed vapors, they have to learn that they are not the same all the time. Sometimes you need to raise your nicotine for a while, either to reduce your consumption or just because you're in a bad mood and you need some support. So everybody has to understand, but vape shops owners and vendors should know that nicotine is a tool, and they should teach people how to use it.
And there should be some responsibility and some ethics that goes along with that, because we are selling nicotine. Let's not forget that. And also the manufacturers as well, too. Part of what we've been doing with Sevilla USA with Phil is going to the manufacturers. We funded a study. The Chinese manufacturers funded a study for Dr. Fasalinos on the absorption of nicotine in open vapor devices. I'd like to see more of the manufacturers and the liquid manufacturers continue to do their own testing before they put the products on the market. I mean, we had nickel and titanium be actually wires that we use for vaporizing. I have not seen one study on those products that shows, you know, what exactly is being vaporized when we use these products. I want to put more pressure on the Chinese manufacturers, and I think that's what me and Phil are doing, but I also want to see pressure on the liquid manufacturers on this side to continue to do testing, better flavorings, stuff that will not harm us 20 years from now, 30 years from now, because I don't want to be like the big tobacco companies back in the 50s and the 60s that lied to people and said, oh yeah, smoking is good for you. I like to see the responsibility and the ethics that goes along, just as Jacques said, with selling nicotine, we have to have some ethics and responsibility that goes with it.
Thank you. I think we should have a word as to conclude. So first I would like to thank you, each of you, for attending this. And you know, people, even though they're working right now, most of them are listening, and the rest will hear it afterwards on replay on YouTube. So I want to thank you and we will translate and do the best to spread the word, spread the message, and help the industry get the word, get the message. So do you have a last word, each of you?
Get organized. Basically, it's a political firefight. Everything here will be gone unless you fight for it in politics.
Be responsible is one of our biggest things. We need the industry to be responsible, and remember smokers, and we need to work hard, and we've got to talk to people. And one of the biggest tools we've ever had is the ability to tell people our stories. It's the most effective thing we can do, and it's the best and easiest way to change minds. But we do need the industry to be responsible, so we're not having to fight fires caused by silly things. And remember the smoker.
And just a simple thing to do when you're a vapor. Go out and talk to smokers.
Yeah. I just want to reiterate what Clyde said. This is a political fight. This has nothing to do with our health. And the only way to win a political fight is funding, money. So we need to be able to fund the people that are doing the work and the organizations that are fighting for us from a consumer or a trade association level or even a manufacturing level. We need to continue to provide funding. And I know with the margins in the e-cig industry, you should be able to do that. So don't be afraid to put your hand in the pocket and fund the various efforts that are going out all over the world, in any country that you are. The only way we can win this is politics and to be able to fund them.
Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon. No, but thank you very much for having me, and I do think it's very important. This is fun. There's people having a good time, people are making money, but I think it's very, very important to remember why, right? Remember why. This is about saving lives, this is about harm reduction, and let's never, never lose fact or lose focus on the smoker.
And pleasure.
Merci à vous tous, merci à vous tous. On vous souhaite une excellente journée. Il y a d'autres conférences encore cet après-midi, n'hésitez pas. Et sinon, vous avez l'émission sur YouTube. Bon Vapexpo.
Thank you, guys.
Actually, can I just get a picture of the... Yes, sure. You see a kind of really toxic mixture of bad science. So their latest paper is just complete junk science. They've taken all the worst things from California, put them in a blender and spat it out from Geneva. It's awful. Secondly, they haven't a clue about what's going on here. They know nothing about the industry, about the way the market functions, about who the players are, what the tobacco industry is doing, are completely ignorant about that. Yet they're trying to design regulation that would deal with it. Thirdly, they have zero policy-making discipline. When you propose policies, you should have a sense of what the impacts are. You should consult. You should understand the costs and benefits. You should understand unintended consequences. They've done none of that. They just list policies and say, here you go, that's what we've done. They have some truly dreadful ideas. So WHO actually promotes outright prohibition, so that a country should just simply ban it, even though cigarettes are available everywhere in, say, Malaysia, Hong Kong, Singapore. Those countries are responding to signals from WHO that say ban vaping. They have incredibly authoritarian instincts. There isn't a rule or an intervention that they think is unacceptable. And then finally, they've created this incredibly insular forum where it's almost impossible for anyone who doesn't agree with them to attend and participate. They hold the meetings in places that are difficult to get to, and they make it extremely hostile to participate. And I'm afraid that the WHO, as it stands at the moment, is generalizing the kind of mindset that we see in the FDA around the entire world. And all I can say is that we just have to, I completely echo these points, you've got to get the money into advocacy, into understanding, into science. This will all be gone in a couple of years if you're not careful, because you've got to fight for the right policy environment. And that means being organized, having well-funded consumer groups, highly technocratic, capable trade associations, and you have to get out there and win the argument with the scientists, the regulators, and the policymakers.
Juste en résumé, ce qui est important, ce que dit Clive, c'est qu'il dit qu'aujourd'hui tout est en train de se jouer. L'OMS est en train de confirmer sa volonté de vouloir éradiquer la vape et de supporter l'industrie du tabac. Il dit qu'il y a une chose importante aujourd'hui pour les industriels de la vape, avant tout, avant de faire du marketing, ce qui est important, c'est d'aider ceux qui représentent au niveau scientifique dans les études, de soutenir les études scientifiques, de soutenir les associations comme SOVAPE et d'autres qui sont des associations de réduction des risques, de soutenir les initiatives pour faire bouger la législation, pour faire bouger la perception des gens, pour faire aussi avancer les données scientifiques. Parce qu'il dit si on ne le fait pas maintenant...
As we saw yesterday, and for those of you that saw the Billion Lives, this is not just a USA situation. This is a global attack on tobacco harm reduction. Where do we go from here? I think what we need to do as an industry is become more organized. We're very disorganized, from a consumer level to a manufacturing level to even an advocacy level.
Le problème, comme explique Dimitri, c'est qu'aujourd'hui, il y a un problème au niveau de l'industrie de la vape. Il ne parle pas qu'aux États-Unis, il parle aussi en Europe. C'est que l'industrie de la vape est très désorganisée. Et aujourd'hui, il est urgemment temps que l'industrie de la vape s'organise.
This industry grew in just a few years. We're still a baby industry. We're still a small industry, but look at this event here from 3 years ago, how it's grown. We've invested a lot of money into marketing and invested a lot of money into all these beautiful stands and liquids and models, instead of investing money where we need to invest money, and that is public health, testing, science, political action, consumer action, industry action, and I think that's the only way we're going to be able to win against the big interests that we're up against right now.
Juste en quelques mots, ce qui vous explique, c'est qu'aujourd'hui, on a la chance d'être dans par exemple, un Vapexpo, comme il disait, il y a 3 ans, enfin, il y a 2 ans et demi, 3 ans, c'était pas du tout aussi grand, ça se développe. Il y a des booths, il y a des stands qui sont toujours plus beaux les uns que les autres, il y a du marketing, tout se développe, mais ils disent, surtout, n'oubliez pas, avant tout, ce qui est important, c'est des actions faites par les industriels pour faire changer les choses au niveau légal.
Good morning, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here. Amazingly cool exhibition. Thank you for this. I've learned a lot already this morning. For me, this is the battle in public health. It is going to be a defining issue, really, for the century in terms of the arguments about 1 billion lives. I would say we have to turn people. We have to bring them to understand, and it's one person at a time. I noticed a picture of Professor Doutsenberg up on the screen up there. Now that is a man who has made a really important journey, I think, it's fair to say. I'm sure he's not here, but he has changed his mind. He's had the courage to change his mind, stand up for doing the right thing. And we just need to keep pursuing that. He's influential. His influence has changed things. It's created a new space in France for SOVAPE and things like that. So that's my view, one thing at a time. In terms of the problem we're facing, it's actually much worse, Phil, I think, than you were saying. Believe it, it's even worse than that. I was going to talk a bit about WHO, the World Health Organization. And
there's a lot of money grabbing going on in vaping right now, okay? So we look at the FDA and we say they're about money and power and not about health and safety. But I can also look at this very industry and say that there's a lot in this industry happening right now that's about a money grab. And it doesn't care about the industry. It doesn't care about how this industry looks. It doesn't care about how this industry is perceived to the public. We've got a lot of issues out there, okay? And I want to see these issues resolved. I want to win this. I want to win this for all of us right here who vape. I want to win this for all of the manufacturers and all of the vape shops who are making money with this. But most of all, I want to win this to reach, at least in the States, the 40 million people who are still smoking. So that's what I have to say, and I'll leave it to somebody else.
Juste, alors je vous rappelle que ceux qui veulent, il y a des audio guides que le test là-bas peut vous donner. Sinon, en vous la faisant court, just to sum up for them in a few words, and I remind them there is audio guide if they need to, and they can also watch it back on YouTube afterwards. Les 3 grands points, c'est quoi? C'est que à l'heure actuelle, avec la régulation, ce qui vous explique au niveau des États-Unis, à l'heure actuelle, 99,99 des shops vont fermer à terme aux États-Unis. Donc déjà, l'industrie va se casser la gueule. L'autre chose, c'est qu'au niveau des vapoteurs, évidemment, plus d'industrie veut dire plus de matériel à disposition. Et donc, évidemment, les vapoteurs risquent de retomber dans le tabac. La troisième chose qui rappelle, c'est au niveau du marché noir, qu'il va y avoir un boom du marché noir, black market, aux États-Unis et dans le monde entier, parce que les vapoteurs ne vont pas vouloir se soumettre et vont vouloir avoir envie d'avoir encore accès à leur matériel. Et comme il dit, nous, ce qui est important, c'est qu'on sauve des vies, ok. Mais il dit aussi, on a une industrie. Notre industrie de la vape, évidemment, elle a besoin de faire de l'argent, elle a besoin de se développer, elle a besoin d'être mieux perçue. Les vapoteurs aussi ont besoin d'être mieux perçus dans le public. Donc aujourd'hui, c'est vraiment un moment crucial dans la vie de la vape au niveau des réglementations. Parce que nous, en France, c'est vrai qu'on a la TPD, on n'a pas eu l'application la plus stricte, mais aux États-Unis, ils ont une situation extrêmement grave. Je vous rappelle aussi qu'au Québec, et au Canada, pardon, avec la loi 44, je vous rappelle que la situation est catastrophique aussi. Donc Phil vous rappelle qu'en l'occurrence, tout se joue en ce moment et qu'il est important que vous soyez informés et il est important que vous soyez mobilisés parce que justement, on est en train de défendre nos droits parce que quand l'industrie de la vape est touchée, bien évidemment, les vapoteurs sont touchés aussi par voie de fait. So, okay, so actually, that's not a good picture. I know why you wanted to make a shout out, and say, okay, guys, wake up. The industry is falling, the vapors may die, will die, and go back to smoking. And the last thing is the black market. And you say, okay, the vaping industry also have to move forward and change perception. So, okay, but where do we go from there? So what is the situation today? So Dimitris and Clive, Lorian and Jacques, I mean, where are we heading? Where are we now at for the situation? Dimitris, Clive, which one?
Healthier and to make people safer, they are going to kill people. People are going to die. And why is that? Because if we can't get these FDA regulations fixed, if we can't get the predicate date changed, the products aren't going to be available. The vape shops are going to go out of business. Okay? And people, smokers, aren't going to have access to these potentially life-saving products. People are going to die. That's way one. Okay, what about way two? There is a percentage, not a lot, I don't think a lot, but there's a percentage of people who vape currently who again aren't going to have access to those products, and they are going to go back to smoking. People are going to die. What about way three? Okay, way three is that there is going to be a black market created. Okay, that is going to happen, don't kid yourselves. And that is going to put unsafe products and unsafe e-liquids into the hands of the consumer. People are going to die. The first one that gets mixed the wrong way or over-nicked or maybe access to that nicotine to children, people are going to die. And I think there's another way too, because there's a lot of people who have a lot of money, time, and effort invested in the vaping industry. Okay, be it as a business or a manufacturer or a vape shop owner, they're going to lose everything. Their entire investment. They are going to lose their income. They are going to lose their way of making money. And I wouldn't be surprised if that doesn't lead to a suicide here or there. People are going to die. So thank you very much, FDA, for protecting our health and our well-being, right? But you know what? It's so sad because it's not about health. And it's not about people being healthier. It's about money and power. Isn't that what it always is? It's about money and power. That's what they care about. They care about money. See, when I look at things like the Royal College of Physicians study, and I see that they are calling vaping 95% safer than smoking, my mind, my tiny little mind says that, well, that means that there's 95% less of a chance of you getting cancer if you vape rather than smoking, right? This little grassroots industry could potentially save 95% of smokers' lives. We shouldn't be paying them. They should be paying us, right? I mean, look at what this industry has done. But I can't just attack the FDA, because if we're talking about money and power, we also have to talk about the vaping industry a little bit. Maybe not so much here, although I do see Vape Naked right over there.
Pour un sujet qui est brûlant en ce moment, c'est VAPE, réglementation et politique de santé. Donc l'objectif, c'est qu'on a un parterre d'invités de choix pour discuter de tout ce qui est législation, de faire un point ensemble dans le monde entier. Next slide, s'il vous plaît. Pour faire un point dans le monde entier sur les réglementations aujourd'hui, où est-ce qu'on en est, quelles sont les conséquences pour les vapoteurs et quelles sont les nouvelles réglementations qu'on va avoir. Et pour ça, je vais vous présenter évidemment Jacques le Houezec, le fondateur de SOVAPE et qui est notre ambassadeur en France pour tout ce qui est les données, les data et auprès des politiques de santé. Dimitris, qui est le fondateur de Smoke Free Radio, c'est une radio que je vous encourage à aller voir, qui est extrêmement actif dans tout ce qui est action internationale au niveau des États-Unis pour combattre l'ensemble de la dimming regulation. Maintenant, on a évidemment Phil Bussardo, qui est l'autre reviewer américain par excellence et qui va aussi nous donner son insight dès l'introduction sur qu'est-ce qui est en train de se passer selon lui. On a évidemment Clive Bates, que vous avez vu notamment dans le film hier, que vous voyez dans tous les films, qui est incontournable dans tout ce qui est l'analyse et les politiques de santé. Il a cet excellent blog qui s'appelle Counterfactual, donc n'hésitez pas à aller le voir sur Internet. Et je termine par Lauriane, juste à côté de moi, et qui va nous faire justement un point sur tout ce qui est Angleterre et en même temps sur son avis sur l'ensemble des politiques mondiales actuellement en cours. Alors, l'ensemble de cette conférence va se tenir en anglais. Donc, vous avez des audio guides si vous avez besoin de suivre. Voilà, sinon je vous souhaite une bonne conférence. N'hésitez pas si vous avez des questions, bien évidemment. So now we switch to English. So hello guys, actually I introduce you, all of you. Thanks for joining us here. So today's purpose is to talk about vapes, vaping regulations, the regulation we are having now and the regulation to come and the impact, the good thing and the bad thing for vapers. So I think for an introduction, we could start with you, Phil.
I get to go first.
Yes. Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So the first thing, thank you very much to Vapexpo for having me back. I was here for the first one a couple of years ago, and I was blown away by the fact that anybody even knew me in France. But I guess vaping isn't about a city, isn't about a country. Vaping is about the world, because in the world, everybody smokes, okay? So I wanted to talk first because these fine folks up here are going to be able to give you much better insight into the regulations and the FDA and the PMTA and all of this stuff. I just want to get mad for a little while, if that's okay with you guys. That's what I want to do. I want to get mad. And I'm going to stand up while I get mad, too, if that's all right. So the FDA, in their infinite wisdom to protect the people and to save lives, they have these deeming regulations. So in their attempt to make people